another episode of Animator Interviews. My name is Vernon. I'm a contributor at Animation for Adults, as well as Animation Nights New York, or ANNY for short. For those new to ANNY, we are a monthly screening event and yearly festival that celebrates the very best in animation talent. Our artists come from all across the globe, and many have gone on to have their work featured at Annecy, Cannes, and other prominent festivals. Our next screening is scheduled for Sunday, April 25th. Films will be available from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Time with virtual mixers from 3 to 5 and 8 to 10. If you like books and poetry, I have a strong hunch you'll enjoy today's episode. It's not every day we see literature adapted into animation, but Aya Gannot has done just that. The Israeli artist is a graduate of Jerusalem's Bezalel Academy of Art and Design, where she earned her screen arts degree in 2018. Aya's thesis film, Studies, takes its name from a short story by Franz Kafka, a Bohemian writer famed for his magical realism and bleak existential themes. The film opens at a train station. A man boards the platform, quietly observing his surroundings and struggling to discern his place in the world. But when a mysterious woman catches his eye, his uncertainty begins to fade. Who is this woman, and why does she feel so familiar? Quiet, poetic, and ambiguous in meaning, Studies is an art film in every sense of the term. Today, Aya has graciously agreed to discuss this intriguing short and talk a bit about her career. Aya, thanks again for coming here. I'll open with the same question we ask all of our artists. What got you into animation?
I've always watched animation on TV or kind of movies, the classic movies, I guess, like Disney but then when I got older, I guess I got more into like the Ghibli movies. And also I'm half Japanese. So I grew up in Tokyo. So I watched a lot of anime and read a lot of manga. And I guess when I came to Israel, I didn't really speak a lot of Hebrew. So I kind of just stayed into watching manga, like reading manga and watching animations and anime. And then I kind of discovered all the experimental animation only when I was kind of maybe like 20, when I was 20. And then when I was living in Berlin. And then I just kind of decided that it's a way to also do art, but it's also kind of, it also can be, making movies and doing like films. So I think that's the reason and how I got started.
Well, no, that's really interesting. You know, you look at the visual aesthetic you see with Israeli animation and then what you see with anime, and they're completely different. So you really kind of come from, two different worlds. Did you have any influences growing up that inspired you to go into the industry? Any heroes?
Animators? Not really. I didn't know anybody. I guess maybe the Russian animator. I really liked him. He did Hedgehog in a Fog. His name is, I don't remember his name. Anyway, I really liked the Ghibli movies.
Yeah.
And Miyazaki was really, I don't know if it was a big influence. I just really liked how he told the story. And also it was very, I don't know, I think I always have like a special place for Japanese movies and Japanese cinema. So, but only when I was in university, I started to get into who's making the animation, and I don't know, Milt Kahn and all these people from Disney and the 12 men. And then, so only in university we actually started to learn who's actually making the animation. Which is, I guess, a lot of people don't really know who is the animator or who. And also, my professors or animators from Israel, that they're known animators from Israel, but I knew what they've done only after they told me. Like, oh, I did this TV show when you were 10 years old, or I did this opening for this thing. And only that was the time I knew that what they're doing.
You made a really good point there, Aya. It's easy as, I guess, an adult who's familiar with directors and names to just assume that people grow up knowing those names, right? But it's the stories that impress us the most as children. We kind of learn the identity of the directors in retrospect. So thank you so much for sharing. I'd like to go ahead and talk about your thesis film at Bezalel Studies. I understand this was an adaptation of a short story by Franz Kafka, who was a really famous Jewish bohemian writer in the 20th century. Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to adapt this short story, and is there anything about Kafka in particular that attracts you?
Well, if there's a good book or a good story, I always like, I'll just, if somebody does it better, I don't know. I guess it's maybe sometimes it's fun to take something and make an adaptation of your own. And I really love Kafka's books, and I read a lot of them. And I knew he had a lot of short stories. So I guess I don't know, just looking at I did a lot of research, and I think for 6 months I only just read short poems or short stories, or not only like Franz Kafka's, just all different kinds of stories to Raymond Carver, I remember, because I also loved his short stories. And then just, I don't know, I found the story about the tram, and I kind of changed there are a few things that I left out. It's not the whole story, but it's kind of the Kafkaesque style. And I also really love Franz Kafka. I feel like he's a millennial as a man. And he was ahead of his time. And his work is always, I think it's very also, it talks about this era, not only his era, and in this like capitalistic cultural, I don't know, melting pot when you live in a big city. And I don't know, I just love that he's like, I don't know, I feel like relatable to a lot of things that he's about his writing. And
you can probably attest to the meaning of this story more than I can, but you can feel that sense of disillusionment, of almost existential anxiety, I guess, in this character that you've created, this man, as he boards the tram in the story. I was wondering if you could just tell us a bit, because it's very open-ended. It kind of lends itself to interpretation. How do you see this story thematically? What do you think that Kafka was trying to tell us? And what are you trying to tell us by giving this story life?
The film is about a man who is kind of contemplating about uncertainties of his place in the world, in the city, in a big industrial gray city. And then he just sees a woman on the tram, and he's kind of astonished and super surprised by what she's wearing or how she looks like. But you don't really understand if what he's feeling, what he feels towards her. And but it kind of, and then it comes kind of in like a weird dream sequence. And then you don't really understand if it's if what he sees is true, or then it kind of like there's a part where he touches her hair, but you don't really know if he does it. And there's a lot of like symbols in the movie, and kind of weird things that I just put there. And it's very open to interpretation, and it's very non-linear, and kind of you go in a dream and you come back, and I feel like sometimes when you live in a city, it's kind of like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
For me, anyway, that kind of is sometimes I'm in the city and you see something weird, but I don't know. You think it's a little bit magical and a little bit mysterious, but then I don't know. A homeless man yells at you, and then you're back to reality.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was watching the film, I kind of felt like I was in this dream world, right? Where I didn't really know if what the man saw was physically transpiring or if it was in his head, if this woman he saw was, someone he loved or possibly knew, or if he was just projecting his loneliness on someone. There are all these questions this film asks that I guess aren't meant to be answered, right?
It's open to interpretation.
Yeah.
Anybody can think about. You
Yeah.
can think that something else, and the other person can watch it, and he'll be like, "No, it's about I don't
Yeah.
know another topic." But
Yeah.
but it has like kind of a existentialism feeling to it, and
Yeah.
it's mostly I don't know, mostly because I just lived in a lot of big cities. I'm from a big city, and I lived in few cities, Berlin, and I don't know, I grew up in Tokyo, and I always moved to another big city, and I feel like it's kind of a feeling that you always get when you live
Yeah.
in a metropolitan or just like a little ant.
And you can kind of feel that existentialism visually in the film too, right? Which kind of leads me to my next question. I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about how you engineered your visual style for this film. It's very minimalistic, kind of
Mhm.
avant-garde, experimental. I think the video description on Vimeo said it was done using charcoal, and there isn't a lot of color. There's this very bleak
No.
atmosphere you create. Could you tell us a bit about that?
I used I mean, wow, the process was kind of long because I did it digitally in on
Mm.
Cintiq, and then I printed everything, like every frame. I printed it on a printer, and then I went over it with a light box, like with a I don't know how to say light box.
I think
Is
so,
that
yeah.
the name? Yeah. So and then I colored it by hand, and then I had to uh, photo it again. It's kind of stop motion actually. It's not. It's just stop motion paper and not.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I also used only charcoal, and I think there's only a red, blue, white, and yellow, which is the primary colors. And yeah, I mean, for me, I really like I like classic animation, but I really like it when it's rough. I don't like my preference is like everything. I don't know when it's too clean. I maybe you can see the mistake. And when it's rough, I don't know. It's more forgivable. I don't know. And it's also I like it when I like the feeling that somebody touched it, can feel the hand. So I mean that's the reason I kind of prefer to do it like analog. I could say analog and not digital at the end. But
Yeah.
and the primary colors is just also part of the story. I think I wanted to separate between the white, which is such a quiet color, against the small pieces of red, blue, and yellow, which is kind of like represent the. I mean, the white can represent the city, I guess, and
Yeah.
the red, blue, and yellow are kind of, and they're also on sheeps in the film. So I think I maybe was referencing to maybe that the white is the big city and the colors are just the people who live in the city. We're just only little dots and not and the white is just I mean most of the movie is white.
You talk about the texture of the film,
Mhm.
the rawness of it. There's something very beautiful about that. I think it's no coincidence that you chose to make this rougher, not as tidy as a lot of mainstream traditional animation nowadays. Films like that have a place, but they almost feel less personal, and you can kind of feel your personality, right? That physical touch like imbued in every single frame when you're watching this film. It's kind of like looking at a painting or a sketch almost. Yeah.
Diary. It's kind of like a diary also because I mean there's a lot of text there which I wrote also hand like it's like my handwriting.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to I mean there's some mistakes but I didn't really erase them fully or I just kind of I don't know just draw a line
Yeah.
across it, which I also kind of stylized it in the movie just
Yeah.
because it was getting so it was just so tiring to fix everything and I was thinking to myself, why do I have to fix it? You don't have to make everything perfect, you can just leave
Are
it.
you talking about the crossed out words that appear
Yeah,
when?
or
Mhm.
just kind of I don't know, maybe some frames are not in the exact place where they're supposed to be, but I think I like it and I like to
Okay.
see animations that are kind of like this and not 100% perfect because it's nice to see I don't know somebody's work that somebody worked on it just like I could like an oil painting or yeah statue like a sculpture like oil painting when you just do a lot of layers and you can actually see the layers beneath uh, so it's I think it's interesting and always interesting to see mistakes. I think it's part of the process also.
Absolutely.
um, no, it's just making art. It's kind of also it's always a process, and I don't know if you have to erase whatever you've done
Yeah.
before. And I don't know. I really believe I'm a firm believer of the process.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's probably difficult as the artist to examine your own work and view it in the same way that the audience would, right? Because, I'm not an animator. I can't really speak to any like small technical flaws that might have been in that film. But when I saw those crossed out words, I feel like it made me appreciate the film more because I found myself kind of questioning the text and wondering, is there more than one way to interpret what Kafka's saying? That's all
Definitely,
that
I
really
think that
happens.
definitely there is
Yeah.
because I kind of interpret it and
Yeah.
I kind of interpreted it in a different way. I think there's a part of the story that I actually didn't put because I don't know, I felt like I didn't kind of connect to it. And also I wanted, I don't know, maybe it's a big, maybe people will be like, oh no. But I don't know, I wanted to take, I don't know, I wanted to um, take it to my place instead of just leaving it with
Yeah.
what, I mean, about what he was talking. And he focuses a lot on the girl in the story. But I wanted the ending to focus more on the city than the girl. And also there are things that he wasn't even talking about that I just put in the film as there's a cat the whole film. And this is something I just wanted it to be in the movie. That I wanted also the cat to represent, I mean, the strange things that happens when you live in a city.
Yeah.
Uh, and also I don't know, I like the feeling that I get maybe some other people get when you're walking in the street or just on your bicycle and you feel like you're the main character of the movie. um so yeah, that's the reason I just took out parts, very small parts of the text of Kafka.
Yeah,
um,
but you've said something really powerful there. Art is supposed to be a dialogue, right? You take an idea and then you build upon it with your own original thinking, and I think that's what you've done with this text. You've given us more to think about, and without this film, all respect to Kafka, that short story may not mean as much to some people, but now that they have this to think about too, there's more to consider. Um, so I just want to thank you for making the film as a former English major and
thank you.
as someone who just appreciates really cool animation like this. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners feel the same way. So
Thank you for having me.
yeah, absolutely. I know we're running out of time. I did just want to wrap up with one last question, Aya. So you're a young artist, still pretty fresh to the industry. I'd like you to think ahead to the future. Where in an ideal world would you like to be, 10, 20 years down the line?
Well, I still want to continue to do
Hmm.
short films or maybe even a longer film. Now I'm doing another short one, but in maybe 10, 20 years, yeah, I would love to do a feature and just also continue to experiment and also collaborate with other animators
Yeah.
in Israel or around the world, or musicians, because I feel like sound is a really powerful thing
Yeah.
when it's with animation, it can be really great. Um, so yeah, I just continue to make movies and continue to do animation, and yeah, I guess that's it.
It's been a pleasure showing your film at Annie. We
Thank
hope that you
you.
send us some more content in the future. I know I'm being selfish in saying that, but really hope you do. We've seen a lot of
Thank
interesting
you.
pieces come from Israel in the past
Hmm.
too. It's a lot more experimental, a lot more expressive than some of the stuff you see elsewhere. So once again, I really appreciate your time. For all those listening in, if you'd like to follow Aya, we'll include all her social media links with the interview description. Hope you'll continue to follow her work as well. Appreciate your time. All the best to you in the future.
Thank you.